My name is Jasmine Timmons. My experience is a little varied. It started off about a decade ago. I was a holistic direct service provider for girls of color. And so that's through organizations like Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club. You know, we experience life in a way that can be kind of harsh. And so then we can also be harsh to others. Especially others that are just like us. And so, you know, impacted people impact people. And so I think that has been one of the most empowering gifts that majoring in women's studies and communication arts has given me from a political lens. I can really actually practice in a way that supports my relationship with myself and with others.
What are some of the needed conversations within the Black community for the empowerment and safety of young Black women? You know, you've come across such issues like teen pregnancy and unfortunately the increasing suicide rates.
A lot of times doing work with youth, even having my own child, what I've learned very quickly is like, they not listening, right? We didn't listen. We not listening to what folks are saying. We're watching. And so I think more so than the conversations, I think it's really about the practices that we need to really begin to foster. And I think it's just really about like having showing compassion to one another. I think specifically with like I'm thinking specifically with like mother to daughter relationships. Again, how I was referring to Black women experiencing life as pretty harsh. I think we can be harsh to others, and I think that directly relates to like the mother-daughter relationship. This is speaking from my own perspective. I really just try to practice slowing down with my child, right? That creates space for so much just by simply slowing down to really listen to her. I'm an introvert. My daughter is an extrovert and she talk a lot. And just by slowing down and giving her the space to really like listen to what she's saying, even as an 8-year-old, like that has done so much. I think if I had to say something concrete, it would be for, I think, the elder women of color to respect the young wisdom that, you know, youthfulness can bring. I think we're in a culture where it's like, you know, do what I say, not what I do. And like, you know, this grown folks business. And it becomes disrespectful at some point, whether you're a child or not, it becomes extremely disrespectful. And so I think if we can just up the level of respect and like increase how we nurture and just love and care and slow down for each other and affirm our children. I think so many times we think the positive things but don't say them. So if we're going to have conversations, affirming conversations would be my answer for that. But I really think it's just a practice of like what we wish we had and not just being conditioned to do the same things over and over again, right? We always say we won't do that, or I never will do that, and then we do because we don't take the time to slow down enough to develop practices. And again, this is going to be probably redundant, but I refer everything back to like self-love. And so if we can practice that with ourselves, if we can take the time to slow down in the morning for ourselves, if we can show ourselves grace and mercy, if we can, you know, be kinder to ourselves, listen to what we need, I think that we'll be able to do that to others, you know, a lot easier. So
a lot of Black parents have to realize that you can only give as much as you have when you have no frame of reference. So it's hard for, I guess, the older folk to admit that it's like, yeah, no, I've just been doing what's worked for me. And I'm like, hey, we get it. But, you know, you are not the most efficient version of yourself when it comes to expressing that self-love or healthiest towards your child. So it's a hard conversation to be had, but it's got to be had.
But I think it's not having the conversations about therapy, about being vulnerable, about not being perfect. You know, apologizing to our kids is like such a rare thing in the Black community. I think a lot of times for Black mothers too, because it's like you got to hold down everything. You don't have time to be like fucking up or even admitting you fucked up or, you know, crying about it. But I think just not being like human to our children, because we are always seen as having like the superwoman cape on, and I think really in our home space, seeing that as sacred, taking that cape and just like having heart-to-hearts and one-on-ones with our kids. I think also like it's it's often in our communities that we say like our kids ain't our friend, like I'm your mother. And I really struggle with that sometimes because my baby, that's like my bestie. That's my little bestie. But there is a fine line, right? And so I really try to practice what's that line where we have trust and respect and open communication and vulnerability within our relationship, but there's still a level of like hierarchy where like you need to listen to me if we're in like a dangerous situation. I got you. You know, this isn't, we're not going to be having a conversation about this. And so I struggle with it still, but I'm working on practicing it, doing something new, just because we're so tried and true in tradition.
Train up a child in the way they shall go. It really does apply in also behaviors and how you raise your own children. When your family has a lot of specific values, and even if that value is not good, unfortunately, that gets perpetuated forward. How would you say we invest in the infrastructure for whether that be like, giving more money or mentoring to help future young Black women feel safe and supported?
The women of color ecosystem, if I'm gonna put my money anywhere, I'm put my money there. You know, if you're gonna finance something, don't just throw money, but like finance the space and the place to maybe be in a new environment, to inspire something, or to offer some tools and resources. To provide support for single mothers to have that space in place, to even begin to like dream up some things. Because one thing we know about women of color, we gonna be resourceful as hell. We don't need a whole lot, right? We just need the inspiration to like carry it forward. And I think a lot of times that's what's stifled, is just like, what would I even do? What could I do? When can I even think about that? For the good of all involved. I try to have everything I do be for the good of all involved. That way we cover, right? Whatever the mission is, we cover.